I want to thank you all for coming. My name is Donna Rogers, and I'm the director of the Charlton Center for Responsible Investing. We're in the College of Business here at Detroit Mercy, and we're your host for this evening's second annual speaker series. The Charlton Center is one of 3 centers of excellence in the College of Business. We were funded through a generous gift of one of our university's alumnus, Richard Charlton. He is a very well-known investment professional, but he is Chair Emeritus of New England Pension Consultants, NEPC, and our center is named after him. The mission of the center is pretty simple. We want to provide academic excellence and hands-on training to students who have an interest in pursuing a career as an investment professional. But we also have a very special focus, and that is to work on recruiting Black, brown, and female students to this industry. If you looked at assets under management for this industry, it's estimated at about $82 trillion. But of that amount, only something less than 2% is being managed by people of color and females. So the decision to do that is not altruistic, it's because it makes good business sense. And we are a college of business. But you're here this evening because of another very important initiative of our center, and that is our annual speaker series. The purpose of the series is to bring before our students, our college, our community, what I like to call new voices and new faces. They're individuals who are leaders in the financial or investment area and whose professional pursuits exemplify excellence, the kind of excellence we want to see in our students and the kind of excellence we want to bring before students who may not have seen these new faces or heard these new voices. But I want to bring before you the Dean of the College of Business, Joseph Eisenhower. He is going to introduce you to our very distinguished guest, Chair Reta Jo Lewis, President and Chair of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. And following the introduction, our chat is going to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. It is truly an honor to introduce tonight's guest. A native of Statesboro, Reta Jo Lewis earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Georgia, a master's in the Administration of Justice from American University, and a law degree from Emory University. Ms. Lewis was the first Black woman to serve as Vice President and Counselor to the President at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. There, she helped form strategic affiliations between small businesses, especially female and minority-owned businesses. She later served as the nation's first Special Representative for Global Intergovernmental Affairs under Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in the Obama administration. In that capacity, she was the chief diplomat in charge of the international affairs to develop strategic relationships between the federal government, state, and local leaders and their foreign counterparts. In 2013, she was awarded the Secretary's Distinguished Service Award. She then served as a senior fellow and director of congressional affairs at the German Marshall Fund, a nonpartisan policy organization bridging the US and Europe. There, she led initiatives, programs, and exchanges for members of Congress and their European counterparts, focusing on leadership development and diplomacy efforts. In February of 2022, Reta Jo Lewis was nominated by President Biden, confirmed by the US Senate, and sworn in by Vice President Kamala Harris as the President and Chair of the Board of the Export-Import Bank of the United States, which provides governmental loans to American exporters. In short, Chair Lewis is a senior executive with over 25 years of leadership experience in international affairs, diplomacy, law, public policy, business, and regulatory affairs. She's a lifetime member of the Council on Foreign Relations and a former board member of the Leadership Council for Women in National Security. Please welcome EXIM Bank President and Chair, Reta Jo Lewis.
Well, good evening again, and thank you for attending this fireside chat. I want to start by sharing something with you that I saw regarding the chair's schedule, which I found very impressive, and I want you to know. In February, she was in Oman having strategic dialogue with their Ministry of Finance. Later that month, she met with government and private sector leaders in Bahrain. In April, she accompanied Vice President Harris to Africa. She was back to Pittsburgh to meet with the Executive Board of United Steelworkers. In June, she gave a keynote speech on critical minerals in Quebec City. Then she went to Charlotte, North Carolina, and toured Silicon Valley later that month. In July, she was in Angola, meeting with their president on an energy project. In September, she was in Romania to highlight EXIM's nuclear energy priorities. Mid-month in September, she held meaningful meetings and discussions with world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly. And today, she is addressing our students, our faculty, and community here at Detroit Mercy. So again, welcome. I think a good way for us to get started this evening, because your personal and professional journey is of such interest to us, that if you would begin by maybe telling us your story. Now, I know that you were born in Statesboro, Georgia. That's your birthplace. In 2020, the population there was about 33,000, so it doesn't sound like you were a big city girl. And in 2020, the median income was about 35,000. Now, in reading about Statesboro, I know that that area had an early history of slavery and lynchings, but in 2017, it was named among the top 3 of America's best communities. So our guests have heard your impressive bio. I invite you to tell us your story.
She says 32,000 people in the home of Statesboro, Georgia, which is the home of Georgia Southern College. So I'm from a small college town.
All right, okay.
And I am the daughter of entrepreneurs. My parents were small business owners. And it was, it's good to hear about the new ranking because
Yes.
I hadn't heard about
2017.
that. But first of all, let me just say, Dean, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here, Dawn. I really appreciate always the opportunity to be on college campuses, I call it to spread the word about EXIM Bank and to spread the word about what we're doing, of course, in the Biden-Harris administration. As I grew up in Georgia, I went to the University of Georgia, coming out of a town of 32,000 now, and the college was 20,000.
Oh, wow.
So I went from a small town to a big university, and then that's right outside of Atlanta, as you all know, a big football school. We all know that, the red and the black. After graduating, my sister was actually in Washington and decided to come to Washington to further my education, as well as want to get out of Georgia. So got a master's at American, and it was a time when the Presidential Management Fellows Program was being inaugurated, and was able to be selected out of that program. And then I worked for like 8 years in the political arena before deciding I wanted to go back to law school. I decided I wanted to go to law school because as I was in the political arena, working for so many political types and political politicians and the like, most of them all had law degrees. But as my parents would say, they always thought I was going to be raised to be one of those advocates, always out there, trying to be on the crusade. What my crusade has been is about how Black and Brown can be more involved in entrepreneurship, in business, and economics opportunity. That really is who I am. And throughout my professional career, the positions that I have held, whether it's been in the White House working for President Clinton, whether it's been working for President Obama at the State Department with Secretary Clinton, or whether it is now being in the Biden-Harris administration as the head of EXIM Bank, it gives me a unique opportunity. So when I hear you talk about all these places I've been, I have to smile and say, it's really been about the furtherance of America's business. It's about the furtherance of America's exporters. It is about the furtherance of making sure that we can use the tools that we have at a little known agency called Export Import Bank. Raise your hand if you know about Export Import Bank. I always like to know who's in the audience. Because it's a federal agency, it is an agency that is authorized by the United States Congress. And in 2019, when we were reauthorized, we were able to have a lending cap of about $135 billion. We have a staff of about 400, so it's a small agency. And what we do, as what the dean was saying, is providing direct loans, working capital guarantees. We provide insurance products to help America's businesses, small, medium, and large. And so I say about the agency because throughout my career, whether it's been practicing law, I went back to law school after working for 8 years, decided I wanted to go back to Georgia, go to school full time. Thought I was going to be missing something, but I didn't because I then came right back to Washington, practiced law in some law firms. And during the time was the first or the second administration I had actually worked in, which was President Clinton, and deciding to go into the White House. After the White House, practicing law, becoming a partner at and of counsel in big firms. And along comes Secretary Clinton, who I had worked with in the Clinton administration. And when she decided, one, she was running for president, I worked with her. But then after her loss in the election, and President Obama invited her to be his secretary, was selected to join the administration as the special rep for global intergovernmental affairs. And so those different, I mean, I call those positions, but I call those life experiences for someone like myself, because it's always allowed me to do what I love, and that is working with people, working with elected officials, working with business leaders. I spent some time at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and you know, and as they say, walking the hollow halls of a small agency, it's been kind of interesting.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you had a very fruitful pathway to your journey. We are, of course, very interested in hearing about the Export-Import Bank of the United States and the work that you are doing. How would you describe the mission of the bank?
You know, the mission is very clear. Our business is all about supporting our U.S. exporters, large, medium, and small, and in facilitating their exports as we support jobs here in the United States. Our mission is very clear. When Congress was reauthorized EXIM, they asked us to do additionally four areas of that became mandates for us at the bank. One, they asked us to make more financing available in the small business space, and not just small business for small business sake, but to really drill down and look at women, minorities, LGBTQ, veterans, rural communities, Native Americans, and the like. We all know that small business is the backbone of our economy. And so Congress asked us, of that lending cap they gave us, to provide 30% of our financing in that area. They also asked us to provide more financing in the renewable energy space. So I call it all things energy efficiency, energy storage, climate, all things climate financing, and environmentally beneficial goods and services. They asked us to provide more financing in sub-Saharan Africa. We all know that the president hosted the Africa Leaders Summit last year, and EXIM was delighted to be able to participate in that. And then to as you said, a few short weeks ago, went to Africa, and one of the things that we did was the board of EXIM had approved a $900 million transaction to build 2 solar power plants in Angola, but also using America's innovation and ingenuity with major American companies like Global Schaefer, NetTracker, Sun Africa, and the like. And then they also asked us to make more financing available in what we call China transformational export areas. The transformational export areas is everything from small semiconductors, AI, quantum computing, and then it also include critical minerals. It includes renewables, water, sanitation. So at EXIM, as an institution, we last year did about 5.5 billion in transactions, and this year we met our goal and did about 8.6 billion in transactions. We're very proud of that, to be able to meet those numbers, especially after an institution that had really been shut down for around 2014 for about 4 years. Shut down meaning that we were not able to do transactions. First, it was over 25 million, then it became over 10 million. But EXIM is fully open, we're fully back, and we're fully competitive. And so with those additional areas that Congress wanted us to focus on, it allowed us to be able to use some new flexibilities that we've been afforded, that the board has voted on, in order to make our companies more competitive. And so at EXIM Bank, nothing's too big, nothing's too small for EXIM. We can do deals of we can do transactions of $5,000, just like we can do transactions of $900 million into the billions of dollars. And so right here in Michigan, our exposure here is $2 billion. We're really proud of that. I was just with your governor in New York a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about how we could work with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, who we saw this morning, along with a number of major associations and organizations and exporters who are using the facilities of the Economic Authority, but also some who didn't know anything about EXIM and those who did know about EXIM.
I'm sorry.
No. And I was just going to say, we do transactions across the board, everything from manufacturing to commodities to transportation, you name it. Nothing's too big, nothing's too small, no industry is prohibited with the exception of military.
So when you talk about our state, the state of Michigan, because I know we're certainly interested in what's going on in the trade front. Who's our major trading partner? Would that be Canada or?
You have a number of them. Canada, of course. I mean, it's like you can see it from
right
across,
exactly.
Can see it from your window. Yeah, you can. But the thing about what's happening here in Michigan is that you have such a strong ecosystem of agencies that can work alongside the federal agencies, whether it's small business, whether it's trade and development administration. And it's not just the governor, it's the mayor, it's the county officials who are all the economic drivers here in your communities. The thing about EXIM is that we're not just funding the exporter here, but we're also funding the foreign buyer who wants to buy America's goods and services from our big companies here in the U.S. And so we even have a regional team that's here. Muriel is over here. Raise your hand, Muriel, right over here. She is one of our team leads here in the region, and she works very closely alongside SBA, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and so many more.
So when you talk about leveling the playing field for American businesses, how do you go about doing that? Because you're working with both the export and the import.
Only the export. The import is like a misnomer. We dropped that a long time ago, but it's still there.
All right.
But as a export-import agency, how we are able to level the playing field is really through the financing that we offer. And so one of the things is we are an agency and we are a country that plays by the rules. And there's so many of our allies that do. And because of the OECD, we work very closely within the arrangement on terms and tenors that continue to make not only our agency working with exporters competitive, but also other like-minded nations. The thing about us is that we're constantly trying to modernize our rules. We're constantly trying to modernize the work that we do, because We want to not just have you be competitive, we need you to win. And the way we know that you can win is that it's very clear that one government agency can't do it by themselves. And that's why it's really the collaboration that we believe takes place between us, between other agencies of the U.S. government, small business, of course, the Department of Commerce, and the like. Just today, I already happened to have had a meeting virtually with two of America's major ambassadors, the ambassador from Garcetti from India, and then I was on just before coming here with Ambassador Bond, who's in Trinidad and Tobago. So it expands the gamut. EXIM is open in over 180 countries around the world. And if you want to know where we are open, and that you can go to our website, exim.gov. I always have to put that out there. And it's actually a really good opportunity on the website to not only understand EXIM more, but to hear the different stories from exporters who have grown from, you know, a $50,000 exporting company with $50,000 in revenue to $1 million in revenue, and on and on and on. And one of the things that's really important is to hear the stories. And I think that is really what gives people some confidence when they see other people that looks like them. What we always like to say to Americans audiences is that what people have, the research tells us, and what a lot of us just really don't know, is that 95% of the consumer marketplace is outside of the United States. That means that all of our companies are just focused on 5% of the consumers here, and that's not where the business is. So that's why, organizations like EXIM, working with Michigan, working with the city, working with the county, and other organizations, we're trying to keep telling the story that we have tools that can help you win. We have tools and counseling and advice services that can help you understand if you're not exporting now, but also you may want to be exporting in the future. This week, being here in Michigan is important because this is Michigan it's a manufacturing week in Michigan. And so being able to be here, of that $2 billion of exposure here in this state, a lot of that percentage is in the manufacturing area. And we have another tool that we call Make More in America. It is the first time that a U.S. government agency has the ability to provide financing for domestic manufacturing here in the U.S. And so we're working to help provide tools and resources for a company if they want to grow, if they want to expand, as long as it has of course, we have the jobs component. We're a job agency. We must have a reasonable assurance of repayment. We are the federal government. We do want our money back. Mm-hmm. And then we want to make sure the American people, get their money back. And then we want to. It always has to have an export nexus. You don't have to be exporting now, but over the life of the project, it has those types of requirements.
I'm sorry, do you have an example? Because when you're talking about real stories, do you have an example that you can share with us of how that has worked?
Yes, we have some companies here that we like to give them the ability to tell their own story right here in Michigan. A number of manufacturing companies. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. If I can go back just a minute, when you were talking about some of the like-minded countries that we work with, a country that I think has been a lot in the news lately, and one that a lot of the individuals we have today, and our students also, as investors, of course, they look at the geopolitical and the exogenous factors that affect an investment. So what has come to mind lately is a lot of discussion about China, the People's Republic of China. And I know that you have a China and export transformational program. Can you talk a little bit about that? And because I know there's been noted tension, with the United States and China, with the trade policies. So how does that impact you? And does your program address that in any way?
Well, the the work that we do, that Congress asked us to do, was an additional program that they gave us financing ability to provide more financing structures to any kind of deal with a company that is in competition with a company from China. One of the things that we're all clear is that China has like 3 export credit agencies. America has 1. We are it. But there are over 100 odd export credit agencies around the world, and many friends and allies there. And so with the program or the initiative that we are able to offer some different types of terms and different types of tenors that will allow a company, we're not trying to compete on price. We're not trying to do what they call the race to the bottom. We're not going to win out on price. What we're going to win out on is the quality and the value of the service or goods that American exporters are providing. There is not a country that I have traveled in all over the world that doesn't say we need to see more Americans. We need to see more American companies. We want Americans because we know if we buy it from America, it's going to work. We know that if it has a long life shelf, it's going to be able to be replaced by the same company or another company. They also understand that we play by the rules and that we all have similar values. And so when we're talking about programs like the transformational export, it says that we want to be able to use whatever tools we have so that when a company comes up, whether they're bidding or whether they're negotiating, they know that they have the full faith and credit if they're working with our financing, that's standing behind them in order to try to win a particular deal.
So for companies that have business in China, like Apple or Tesla or Disney, those kind of companies that are facing problems because of some of the policies within the Chinese government, does that ultimately have an impact on our relationship with them as far as exporting? Like when they do the circuit boards and the semiconductors and, the whole discussion of security with some of the things that are being produced. Does that have anything to do with the work you do, or is that more of a diplomatic thing?
I leave that to the diplomats.
Okay, all right.
I leave that to them. Basically what she's saying is, when people realize, when they contract with American companies, they have trusted vendors. They know that they have a trusted resource. They know that they have the best. And we're really trying to make sure that what we have to offer can help any company of any size. Like you're talking about what types of things do we have here right here in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Right here in Detroit, we have everything from having done a loan of just $52,000 for a company doing durable goods, Dugan Electric manufacturing. We have someone here doing everything from primary metal manufacturing. That's Global Titanium Inc. We have Hancock. I see here we have Hancock Enterprises. They're fabricated metal products. So we have everything here from McCure's Pickles doing food manufacturing. They had a loan from us of about $111,000. So, what we learn all the time is that, a lot of women in minority companies are about 500,000 to $1 million in revenue. And so, you always have to say, why don't people export? And people don't export because either they don't know about services that can be offered to them through the state, through the city, or through a federal agency, or they know it's all about the risk. Because at the end of the day, if you are a small business owner, you want to make sure that you have the ability, one, to get paid, and then number two, you want to be able to offer terms if a foreign buyer is coming to you. So that's one of the reasons why we work very closely with diaspora communities, because the diaspora communities who are normally in touch, especially the entrepreneur, if he or she is doing business abroad, around the world, we want to be able to assist them in anything that they're trying to do.
So you mentioned things that are going on in Michigan, and with that, I know that one of your initiatives is for the minority and small businesses. So if I'm a small business person, how would I go about, number one, understanding if whatever I'm manufacturing is something that someone in another country wants to buy? Do you provide that type of, kind of counseling or help for individuals who are doing small businesses but might want to expand? Is that something that you do in addition to the financing and the insurance? And
Well, we're really proud at EXIM that EXIM stood up years ago, a women and minority division. It has about 12 people. All total, our small business has about 90 people that's in it. Last year, we did about 1.6 billion in small business. We did about 381 million for women and minorities. We hope to be on track this year, maybe about 1.4 billion, and on track around the same amount for women and minorities. The thing is what our MWOB office allows those individuals, those specialists, to really serve the community. And you can serve the community not just by counseling, but also advisory, going the extra mile for advisory, but more importantly, working with organizations, working with entities that serve the community or serve that particular population, because we can't do it by ourselves.
mm-hmm.
That's why we're oftentimes co-located with other federal agencies or within state and city agencies. But what we can do is specifically, we all know that access to capital is the number one challenge for the growth of small businesses. We also know that risk, as I said, is the big factor and fear is what keeps people from exporting. And so what we want to do, not saying go to the website, but go to the website, exim.gov. It's right there. And I can tell you, I use the website all the time myself. I'm always trying to find out what else do we do, who are we doing it with, and what are we offering. And right there, like I said, it tells you the stories. And in those stories, it also then leads you to our advisors. And it leads you to people like Muriel, who's here in Michigan, who services this region, and other specialists who can advise and counsel folks even before they get into the program. We have our conference in Washington on the 19th and 20th, so I have to shamelessly do a little plug.
Is that this month?
It's October.
Okay.
At the Washington Hilton. And the reason why I'm not saying do conferences just for conference sakes, but we have a very interactive conference, and we bring our loan underwriters and our business specialists to be there right on hand through the programming that we operate on, so that we can have B2B conversations and B2G. We'll have other federal government agencies there. So if you happen to find yourself in Washington, or if you know someone, please, it's a great opportunity for them to work firsthand with our specialists.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned briefly some of the programs in sub-Saharan Africa, and you'd also referenced the EXIM website, which I have looked at. So I want to, if I could, I just want to share with you, and I think that this will maybe help understand when the chair is saying that they're doing so much work in other countries, but that work does benefit American manufacturers. And these are some examples. These were some deals that EXIM did. There was an $11 million loan guarantee supporting exports of locomotives from a company in Atlantic, Georgia, that's called RailServe. In Liberia, there was a short-term insurance policy which provided a $6 million revolving line of credit to support the sale of U.S. wheat to Liberia. EXIM supported the export of design, engineering, and construction services to the Republic of Senegal. The nearly 91.5 million in loans guaranteed increased access to reliable electricity for rural communities throughout Senegal. And again, this was working with an American company.
It's always working with an American exporter or a foreign buyer who wants to buy American goods and services. That's why we are the America U.S. Export Bank. And so when sometimes people say to me, well, why are you trying to benefit another country? No, I'm benefiting I'm America all day long. I am about an American business every day, all day. And in so doing, we at the level where we operate in, we've got to always be working in partnership and collaboration with the foreign counterpart. We cannot just be about jobs in America, which we always are about jobs in America, but we also have to be about jobs in their own country. And so that's one of the like-minded thing that allies have in common when they do that. And people really love the fact that when we come in, we're not just worried about what's happening in the United States. We're also looking at what happens with them. And that's why at Export Bank, US EXIM, we work very closely with sovereign governments. So all those governments that she pointed out, some of those were some sovereign transactions. And that's one of the reasons why we work very closely with the Minister of Finance. We work very closely with the ambassador and the Department of Commerce team in country, and we work very closely in Washington with the Department of Commerce and also the ambassador that's assigned in America. So, this is, as you can tell, I like what I do.
Yeah, it's evident. Yes, yeah. Another initiative of the Export-Import Bank is in clean and renewable energy. And this is, again, of interest, I think, to some of our students because our student investors do observe the ESG guidelines. So environmental and clean energy is something that's important to us. Can you talk about some of the work that EXIM is doing with its environmental export financing program?
The thing about EXIM is that we have individuals on our team who are some of the best experts in the world, especially in the environmental and engineering area. And when we are evaluating projects, a lot of times, they touch on what we call engineering and environment. And we are always not only evaluating the credit to make sure we have a bankable, doable project and looking at everything from a financial perspective, make sure that we can get a reasonable insurance repayment to say we have a reasonable bankable deal. But we also we look at the technical, we look at the legal, we look at the environment. And then we are now in the process of looking at how we're getting ready to go to COP28. Last year we were at COP 27 when we were in Egypt, where we announced some letters of interest with the country of Romania for small nuclear reactor interests that we have in financing. And so one of the things that we are very clear at EXIM is that America has some of the highest standards, some of the highest environmental standards, and we accept no one's standards but ours. We have the highest, we are the leader, and our team uses those as they are evaluating credit, evaluating a project or evaluating a transaction of which we do. And we monitor our projects through the life of the loan. So no one can have to worry about having a go alone strategy. We're working with companies, we're working with the countries on all of their environmental, and we do very, very stringent environmental due diligence.
So that's important, and that's necessary.
Absolutely.
That's necessary. We talked about some of the initiatives of EXIM and can certainly see the value of the work that you do. For some of the students who are with us today, I think they would have an interest as you look at what you've accomplished with the agency. You've had so many successes in your career and your personal life, but what would you consider to be your greatest failure?
I thought she was going with a success story. I always, the belief that I have is that there is something for us to learn in every instance of our life. It doesn't matter whether we win or matter whether we lose. And sometimes you got to evaluate winning just as hard as you got to evaluate losing. I would say the thing that I am most interested in, that I want to always make sure we're winning and not failing, is how we work with young people, how we work with young professionals, how we work with Black and brown students who are in this arena of finance, in this arena of export credit, in the arena of national security. To me, making sure that that next generation is there, to be able to say, when we take our diplomacy around the world, we actually look like America. I'll give you a for instance. When I first walked into EXIM, I said to them, "How many interns you got?" And I'm sure they looked at me like, the president of the Export Import Bank, why is she worried about the intern? Because I'm like, we have to. Everybody, everywhere you go, young people is everywhere. And when you start talking about in these different continents of Africa and others, and where that 18 to 24 is where the future lies all around the world, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Latin America, what are we doing to train or expose? First of all, exposed. I did not get directly, I thought I was in international. When I was practicing law, I used to represent some folks. I thought I did international relations. I didn't realize you don't do international. I worked at the State Department. That is the highest level of government, and our government working in international affairs or working with diplomacy. But you don't have to have an international degree. I mean, I met a lot of you guys. Y'all are accountants. You're consultants. I heard a number of you who are seniors and juniors and freshmen. And there is different work to be done in any government agency. So to me, the failure is if we don't expose you to it. Now, not like, I mean, I did not do, I've only been in the international arena, directly in the international arena, when I worked for President Obama and Secretary Clinton. And now we went from having 4 interns, of which I told them I can use 4 by myself, to 30 this year.
Oh my.
How do we do 30? First, you got to make sure the people internally is interested. Because, you know, they'll be like, why do I need an intern? Because you need some help. And the intern can help you. In so many areas, because but it's the energy that you bring, it's the mindset that you bring, it's the eagerness to want to learn. If we don't help you move to the next level, how are you going to be able to compete against your counterparts around the world? To me, that's a failure. And so we've signed agreements with Inroads, we've signed agreements with HAKU, which is the historically serving Association for Hispanic Colleges. We are working with HBCUs. I was just with some yesterday because there was a big meeting before I came here. There was a big meeting in Washington of HBCUs, historically Black College University presidents. And so we have to, the failure for me is also not ensuring that my colleagues do the same thing. Not just for me, you know, we're making a dent, but it's a dent. I need my colleagues in government to do the same thing, because as we always say, if we don't do it, it's not going to happen.
That's true.
It is.
So we have some wonderful business students here at Detroit Mercy. We have political science students here at Detroit Mercy. So if they had an interest in affiliating with EXIM, how would they go about seeking an internship?
Absolutely. Internship programs. I mean, we have a new HR chief human resource leader who actually has hired a intern coordinator, and on our website, and then through what do they call it, USA Jobs. I mean, I told somebody, oh my God, USA Jobs, I got to get a job there. That's scary. But the bottom line is, not only are we hiring interns and fellows, grad students, undergrads, I will tell you, I have no bias. One of the best interns I had was a sophomore who is now in law school years later and about to become an attorney. And if I had said, oh no, I only want a senior, or I only want a grad student, look at what we would have missed out on. EXIM also this year instituted what we call the Pathway Program. And the Pathway Program means if you come inside, you work with the team, and you have performed, there is, depending on, you know, where funding and that thing, those things are,
Mhm.
you have the ability to be put into a program that allows you to convert your internship into a real
Nice. That's
live
wonderful.
paying job. Now, one good thing about the Biden administration is that the president signed an executive order and said all the interns in the United States government got to be paid.
That's fair.
So
Yeah.
in doing that, they put a big challenge out for everybody and said, you know, we gotta treat everybody, whether you're paid by the federal government or you paid by some program, everybody needs to be on some payment program to allow you to live in Washington or work in a region in one of these federal agencies. So we're trying to do our part. Some of our programs come with funding from the institution that they're working in, and some of our funding definitely comes from our own EXIM budget.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for chatting with me, and we want to take time to open this up for questions from our audience, if that's all right. We have a young lady who has a question right here.
Hi, thank you so much for coming here, Teacher Mercy. It's truly such an honor. I do have a question. So in my leadership class, we talked about the leadership glass ceiling for women, and which is women and racial minorities are more likely to be promoted to leadership positions in organizations that are in state of crisis. Um, I just want to ask, how would you recommend for us to be able to overcome that? Any advice?
Basically, stay in the fight. Period. You gotta. It's a battle. I mean, and you got to decide you're going to win because the ceiling is cracked, but it is not. We haven't gone all the way through it yet. You know, I think Vice President Harris has shown us that she's gotten through a ceiling. But as she always likes to say, she can't be the only one. She can't be the last one. And I think that applies for all of us in these roles. The bottom line is it's about mentorship. It's about, you know, we all hear it, mentorship, coaching. Mm-hmm. I think you can be coached or mentored by almost anybody. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be, you know, someone with all of the accolades that someone might have that you might think. But the bottom line is to ask. Is to ask. Most people just don't ask. Mm-hmm. And then I think we have to, it's like a duty, I believe, that we have when young professionals want to, and those who want to be in these roles. We all know that that women and minorities are not where we need to be in the finance arena. Mm-hmm. I have gone to a lot of export credit meetings, and I'm still saying, 2023, really, y'all. But you see more and more, and it is about exposure. Yes. So if you're trying to break the ceiling, or if you're trying to continue to move ahead, it's who do you know that you can talk with, or what experience can you get? A lot of people don't even know about Export-Import Bank, and I tell people, you know, it's a pathway to Wall Street. You know, you don't think about it like that, but that's what we do, and that's what they do on Wall Street. You know, we're here with Don, who is with the National Security Professionals. We all know that whether it's women and minorities on boards, it's about women and minorities in the C-suite, women and minorities in the management. We don't have enough, and we've got to keep fighting. We got to fight now. Now we fight lawsuits. Mm-hmm. Who want to turn the clock back. Mm-hmm. But there's so many responsible companies and agencies and the administration I'm glad to serve in. We're not. It's all about equity. How do we move forward in this area?
Okay, we have a question.
You talked about this a little bit, but former President Obama made a commitment to phase out fossil fuel subsidies. But soon after, one of the EXIM directors approved a loan, $3 billion of financing for Exxon to begin their liquid gas project in Papua New Guinea. Do you plan on making sure EXIM takes a more serious stance on climate change and reduce their consumption of fossil fuels?
You know, one of the things that I say to all folks who are who in this space is that EXIM Bank is a federally, congressionally mandated agency. The way change can happen is through Congress. I cannot change the rules at EXIM. We are literally it by Congress statute prohibited from discriminating against anyone in the industry, energy sector. And so what I have done is to make sure that we are very much involved and being more aggressive in the renewable energy, energy efficiency, energy storage space. And I have constantly said to folks in the industry and groups and organizations that we need to see more transactions. We need to see more. So I implore you to come to EXIM, offer up these different types of opportunities so that we can be doing those kinds of transactions even more. And then I'm always very open. We meet with all groups and we talk about EXIM. A lot of people say, you know, that are you in violation of your charter? We have had groups and organizations who have worked with our legal teams to make sure that we are complying with the Congress mandate that we are given. But right now, I'm so glad that the trend line for us on the renewable space is going upward. And to be able to put out a $900 million deal that benefits American companies, that benefits a country that's going to be bringing solar power to the community in Angola, we're very proud of. We're looking for more deals, we're looking for more transactions, and we've got to do more. But Congress is where the action is in this battle. And we look forward to continuing to work in this area.
Where's the microphone? Oh, there's right over here.
The question I have is, I don't know how your agency handles this or some other agencies, but for an organization that's looking to go into an area that belong to a country that is less hospitable, you guys give them any training, understanding of what they're getting into, especially if it's not a Western organization, or do you leave that kind of to another agency?
You know, there are agencies in government like USTDA, Small Business, and others who do a lot of training around exporting. Right here in Michigan, we work with U.S. Export Assistance Centers. We work with the regional export councils. We work with organizations that can help right here on U.S. soil, but also from a global and an international space. I tell people that one of the things we do all the time is working with the U.S. ambassadors and working with the ambassadors here in country that is here in the United States. You are absolutely right. People just don't know, and that's one of the reasons why we have to redouble our efforts to assist. And we have 13 regional offices, and the teams here in Michigan stands ready to try to, as someone said to me this morning at an event we did, you know, working with one group can always lead you to another group. We have 6 major lenders right here in Michigan, 3 of them that you all know that I can rattle off as Co-America, Huntington, Huntington, and others. But we have lenders who work with us in our working capital guarantee program. They can also assist. You know, EXIM is an organization that is supposed to, our goal is to stand in the gap where the private sector will not finance, or the private sector is looking for additional assurances if they want to help arrange a particular transaction. Same thing applies when I was talking with the ambassadors today, saying to them, we need to work directly with you, Madam or Ambassador and Mr. Ambassador, who then works directly with the country on their priorities of what they are trying to need from American goods or services. We all know the big exporters, but 90% of EXIM's transaction is in the small business space. Most people don't really realize that. That's what is the lifeblood of an economy, and it's also the lifeblood of I think our organizations. And we are all in the business at EXIM, in the business of small business. And so we have to work with our embassy teams because they're on the ground. They're there when we leave, and they're there with the all of government, as we like to call it, the whole of government in order to support an American business who wants to go abroad?
And I'm the president of the Detroit chapter of the National Association of Security Professionals, that's NAS, which we one of our distinguished was Mrs. Donna here, and we want to first and foremost thank you all so much for hosting this Donna here at the Charlton
Center.
Charlton Center, the Social Responsible Investment, and thank you so much as well. For my soror as well. So you Jules for coming here and spending time with us this evening. So I just first of all just want to thank you all for that. We have quite a few members here who have made it their business to come this evening and to experience you, but also to make sure I want to make sure that the students here also are aware of NAS. So if they're looking for internships and also for also opportunities for mentorship, and please go to NASP, as it's called, NASPHQ.org. And also we have our newly elected incoming chair for Eric Hall, who's all the way here from Chicago as well.
Please stand so we can see you. Yes. Thank you for coming. Yes, thank you.
That's right.
Please visit our website. Reta graced us over the summer as one of our lead speakers during our conference. And then my question. Please go to the website. But my question is, I'm just curious. This whole, I know it's a little different. It's venture capital. You know underrepresented. Black females. This whole fearless fun situation. I'm just curious. Yeah, I know. So I'm sure everybody in the room might have heard about what's going on with the fearless fund.
Is everyone aware of that? The Fearless Fund? Do you know what she's talking about?
Oh, so someone want to talk about it?
No, I'm saying like you should give an overview of what's happening.
Oh, you should. I don't do overview.
You should.
But I'm just curious. I'm just kidding. But no, what are your thoughts on what's going on with Fearless Fund? They make sure they try to help make grants to small business, expressly to underrepresented Black females cannot get access to the venture capital dollars, and now they've been shut down. The grant program ceased. And it's a deliberate effort to just stop that. So I'm just curious your thoughts, since even on your scale, you try to make a point of having
Inclusiveness, yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you, Sarah, for the question. She's a Delta. But we love all our sorrows. And Divine Nine. Eric, good to see you. I think I saw you in Philly. What she's talking about is something that the Justice Department is the battle. The battle is with the Justice Department. I really have to leave it there. The bottom line is at EXIM, what Congress has asked us to do, and that's what we try to stay focused on. We know that we have tools that can help a minority business, a woman-owned business, a small business to grow and to expand and to succeed and to compete. And that's what we're really continuing to put our focus and our interest on. For the, like you were saying, with the young folks, that's all the young professionals that's in the room. I think for us, it's about it's a number of colleagues and we work all the time trying to expose the resources that we have, and also to expose young professionals to the opportunities. There was a time when people was all just trying to go to the private sector. But now people are like, okay, wait a minute, I should be really thinking about government. And matter of fact, I should think about both. Because there's different ways of which you can advance. There's different skills of which you're going to learn. And to me, that's one of the reasons why, we would love to see you all apply for internships. I can only speak for EXIM Bank, at EXIM Bank.
All right.
You touched on how EXIM is centered on small businesses, but based on my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2009, 65% of loan guarantees were companies purchasing
one of the things for us is that, Boeing is one of the biggest companies in the world. It's one of the biggest exporters in the United States and throughout the world, but it's also one of the biggest job um, uh, creators in the world and in here in the United States. We're going to always support our large industries because they have very strong supply chains. And in those supply chains, we want to be able to help those particular companies if they cannot, because they too are always looking for financing. Last year, commodities overtook transportation in the number one sector at EXIM Bank. That can only happen, going to your point, if we diversify. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to do. And I think that the mandates, those 4 mandates that Congress asked us to do, gives us the ability to try to be even more aggressive. And that's why we got to be aggressive. If I said this afternoon, when we were talking to the Michigan companies, is that there is a sense of urgency for all of us in government to work hard to push our American companies to try to enter new markets, but not just to push them to enter into a new market, but we need them to win in that market. And that's why when these countries are saying, we want to see more American companies, there's so many of us that band together from the economic cone in this administration, whether it is from the development side or whether it's from the export side or whether it's just from the straight economic relationship side of like places like commerce and state and others. So for us at EXIM, it's how do we keep going out, telling our story, talking about the brand that we have, talking about the fact that we welcome more opportunities. It used to be a time when they would just sit back and just wait for it to walk in the door. I told them we can't do that anymore. We got to go out and get it. So that's one of the reasons why I never come to a country without or go to a city without going into new working with different individuals, working with different associations, and then also working with all the trade associations, chambers of commerces, you name it. And then messaging is what's so important, I think, for on the America front, to let people know that Export-Import Bank is open for business. And we're not open for business. We are trying to, not only are we open for business, we're trying to deliver results. That is the only way that we're going to be able to make it. So, hey, I welcome all of you to shout from the rafters. There's this tool over here in U.S. government that's looking for you, looking to help you. And, as I always say, when was the last time somebody from the government showed up and said, I want to help you?
All right.
So we do. And I think we are, and the proof is in the pudding. Because of the $33 billion that since EXIM was reauthorized, and it really took place in 20, in terms of the start of it, it was of the 33 plus billion in the last 18 months, we've done 14 billion of that. And we got much more leg room. We got much bigger lending cap. So we're looking for large projects, small projects, and the like.
Any more questions? And we may have this to be our last one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this, Kathy. In an effort to level the playing field with our other industrialized nations, I wonder why the business community isn't making more of an argument for universal health care, where the cost of goods produced wouldn't have or goods sold. Healthcare would be a part of it. Could you comment on that, please?
Leaving that to the HHS department and the diplomats. Okay. No, I mean, all I can say is from my vantage point, when the president worked with his G7 partners and his G20 partners, one of the things that his colleagues asked was for the developed countries to work more with countries that need much more of assistance. And one of the areas, there are several areas, there's like 4 areas: infrastructure, gender, digital, and then of course healthcare and healthcare services. For us, we found that very important because we know that not only do we still have the best medical professionals and facilities and services in the world, people want to emulate what's happening in America. So they're looking for ways to partner or collaborate with U.S. entities and U.S. entities that are going abroad with the, with their goods and services. One of the things that we've been trying to say to them is that EXIM is also goods and services. So we find that people really don't know what it is that they can get financed to assist in their in another country, or if they're like I said, if they're growing and expanding their manufacturing facilities here in the United States, and they want to get some financing, we have that Make More in America program that can definitely can help, be there to help
Oh, one more?
them.
Okay, this will be the last one.
Good evening, how are you? My name is Curtis Lyons. I'm a member of NAS, proud member of NAS, so shout out to Kathleen University, went out too. So my question, I wasn't going to ask until Jimmy before me asked his question. My question is a little bit along the lines of his question, and it deals with being in a room with young people and speaking to them a lot. I'm seeing a pushback against capitalism. So a lot of younger people are like, they're leaning more towards, a socialist position, or, and I'm wondering for you guys how that, how you feel about that, as far as, because I can accept myself a capitalist at the same time. I do believe in fairness with capitalism and some sort of balance. And I know balance doesn't seem to always work. We have here, we have the union striking, the UAW and what have you, because it's all about fairness. I guess my question is, since you guys are, promoters of capitalism, that's what it's about. What's your position, you feel, and how do you feel? What do you think the young people that are here that are saying, hey, this capitalism crap, I'm not for it?
Right.
All I can tell you is that you're right. We're the capitalists in the government, and we're here to help the other ones. But this is an administration. I think you saw where the president stands. Unions have already endorsed the president, but in the sense that we have been doing concerted effort of working with unions. We have had, I myself personally have met with a number. We have union officials on our advisory council. We are constantly seeking their advice and counsel, especially when we're talking about issues that may be controversial, that have an impediment around jobs. We are always, I think I'm proud to be in an administration that is, by all standards, the unions have said, one of the best union president for unions in the history of our country. And I think that what I can say to young people is that there's a road for everybody. There's a road that you can travel that is going to be different than the person sitting to your left and sitting to your right. But if you choose to travel the road that we're discussing here today, it is about economic opportunity. It is about collaboration with allies and friends and partners. It is about the fact that we are working, I think, hard every single day to ensure that whatever road you take around economic opportunity, that our agency is doing our part for you to win, to not only to compete, but also to win.
It's not only to compete, but also to win. Those are going to be our final words, and let's give our speaker a round of applause. That was wonderful.